Got my Predator generator all apart here. Let me explain what happened. So I've done a lot of miles with this generator in the back of my pickup truck, about 75,000. Last trip, it must have got jostled around a little too much. I came back and no longer would it shut off correctly. Well, let me show you how the shutoff works. This thing's all together like this, and this dial is in the off position. That shuts the engine off, but it doesn't, and it also stops the ignition coil from causing the spark plug to continue to go. And so when you go ahead and turn that off, you don't drain the carburetor. And so if you're storing it, a lot of people like to make a modification that I did right here, which I put in an on-off switch in there since I had to handle this. But the first thing I had to do was sort out why, when it was in this position here, was that not working. Well, the first thing I did was I checked the switch here for continuity. And indeed, when I turned this into the correct position, I had continuity from that switch, so that wasn't the issue. I knew everything from here to here was good. There's a male end that goes into this female adapter that I've cut off. It goes to these two wires here, and I knew there was some issue between that male adapter. First, I cut the adapter off to see if there was the connection there. It wasn't the connection there in that male adapter. I checked the wires directly. That seemed to be where the issue was coming from, so I had to trace the wires out. This is all bound up in electrical tape. I had to unwind all that. And then I had to come over here, and as I started unwinding it, I found one of these wires was free. As I found one of these wires was free, I couldn't see quite where it went to. And then I unraveled, and sure enough, it came from this ground that goes back to the negative terminal on the battery. The first thing I've done is I run the new wire through. Now this new wire is a little thicker than the old wire. I'm running some 18 gauge. I'm gonna wrap it around this area right here, and then I'm gonna cauterize it and hold it into place, and then wrap it in tape. So now I'm gonna solder the new switch I put in. Now in order to put that new switch in, so I'm gonna solder these connections instead of going back to it and then heat wrap them. So this was what was there. This was the reset for the 12 volt plug-in right here. I never use that. I don't know anybody who does ever use that. So we just brought that inside. We just leave it here just in case. Same thing with the female adapter on this end. I'm gonna leave it here just in case I ever need to go back to that for whatever reason. Who knows, maybe someday I'll put the remote in it. I don't really see a necessity for the remote. This did have a male adapter that went into this female adapter right here. I'm just gonna leave the male adapter, but I'm gonna be happier with these two solderized. We're gonna go ahead and do our soldering. And when we put this together, what we did to put this switch on here was we had to take this guy out here. There's a lot of videos on that. This is the reset for the 12 volt DC right there. I don't know anybody that uses that 12 volt DC. I don't have any need for that 12 volt DC. So I'm gonna link these together with soldering, and then we're gonna go ahead and put in some shrink wrap on top of them before we wrap them with electrical tape. Okay, now that I've got these soldered, I'm gonna go ahead and heat wrap them. Just gives me a little more security here to have them heat wrap before I go ahead and tape them up. After they've been soldered, now I'm gonna go ahead and tape everything back up and see how it runs. Okay, just to show you, we're going to test this first. So I've currently got this in the off switch, which means, and then if I rotate 1, 2, that's the start position. Now I shouldn't be able to start this with this in the off switch. It won't run because this is killing my spark. Now if I go here, I can kill it that way right there now. So really pleased. Should have turned it to run first before I killed it, but really pleased now. This is a mod that you see a lot of people do right here. What triggered mine was that I had that loose connection over there. Now I'm going to put this all back together, and I have essentially an instant kill switch to stop the ignition coil from telling the spark plug to continue to fire, but I can also just turn this to the off position for when I want to store it and let the carburetor drain dry for storage. So I'm really pleased with this as an overall modification right now. Kind of show you everything in reverse. So I've taped up everything on this side, and then right here there was a zip tie here that I had to cut to get access to undoing the tape on all these wires. One of the other things I do when I tape, I do a little dog ear at the end of my tape right there, just in case I ever have to get back to it. That gives me the spot where I can get to all of this and unwind it real easy. So I always do that little dog ear, and I always tuck it away somewhere where it's not gonna get friction and not unwind on its own. But as you can see, we've got that all wound back up. Here I've got this, I'm gonna cut it. I'm gonna show you this on this pull cord here. If you look, there's this bracket right here on the pull cord. It comes up, and it's pretty obvious how it goes into place because it's around the pull cord. It goes right here, and there are two 8mm bolts that hold it back into place. We'll go ahead and put those in place. So always hand tighten these pull cords, and then go ahead and get my impact driver on them and just give them a little till they lock. That's it. Once we do that, that should be securely in place. And then the next part is, of course, to bring this side back up. The side back up, the first thing I always do is my top screws. Let's see, there and there. And I just gently thread them in by hand to make sure they're secure while I hook everything else up. And then once I get everything in place, I'll go back and tighten everything. Now, if you look, there are 1, 2, 3 screws in the back here, and I'll go ahead and get those in as well. And then the other one I need to do is this top one right here, and those will be it for the screws, and then we'll move on to our bolts. So we've got our screw in place here that we took out, the 2 on the top, and then the 3 on the side over here. Now maybe it's just the medical in me, but I'll take them down with the power driver, but I always finish things with hand. I just don't like to strip things. So now you can see we've taped everything back up inside here. That's real important, so that your switch doesn't catch all those wires here when you're turning your dial from off to on. This one, this is the reset for the 12-volt DC that we just left inside. We're just going to leave that float in here. It should be out of the way without a problem. But we'll go ahead and put, there are 6 screws here that go back in. We'll go ahead and put those in. We'll put our dial back on, and we'll show you how this thing runs. To get this dial back on, you do need a long-handed Phillips to go in there and reach that screw, and that's the final piece of this front panel of getting it all hooked back. The thing we have to do on the side here is put our wheels back on. The wheels are pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple. It's back, it's wheel, washer, the little cotter pin that goes through it. I'm going to need my other hand to do that, but the little cotter pin slips in there, and then just the wheel cap. It's just a little bit different because this right here is, that is your brake when you come up, right? That locks it into place. That's the wheel lock. So you have a little metal clip that goes on first, but other than that, it's metal clip first, then the wheel, then we'll put the washer, the cotter pin, and the wheel cover on. Lastly, on the side cover, there are these 3 10mm bolts that go 1, 2, 3. We'll go ahead and put those in. So we're done, and we're all hooked back up. Let's go ahead and show you how this works now. So right now, this switch is in the off position. This is now my kill switch. And if I try to turn this into start mode here, I turn into start and try to start, it's not going to start. But I put that on, and I go ahead. It's going to start up. I'll go ahead and turn it to run. You can see it's going to run just fine now, and it's going to pick that. Now, if I want to cut it off, I can just hit this switch and just cut off now. And then, of course, I want to turn it off so that I don't have the fuel running through it after that. But let's go ahead and turn this off, and it's going to take it almost exactly a minute and a half from the time I do that. What that's going to do is it's going to drain that carburetor completely, and it'll shut off here in just a bit. I may, and there it goes, and it quits. So now the carburetor's drained. If I want to store it for a long period of time, flip that into the off, leave this in the off, and now I know I'm storing it with that carburetor dry. Anyway, so this is a mod a lot of people do. The wire coming separated in mine led me to it, and so that's how I do it now.